You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
What's up, music lovers? Welcome back to Modern Musicology. We have DJ and journalist Rob Levy.
Hello.
Drummer, singer, songwriter
Hello.
Stephanie Seymour. And I am author and percussionist and whatever else, R. Alan Seiler. And we don't have our fourth member with us, Anthony Williams, and that's a sad thing because today that we're recording this is his birthday. So happy birthday, Anthony. We love you and we miss you. All right. So in addition to it being Anthony's birthday, it's also the show's third anniversary.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary to us.
Can't believe it.
Woo. Oh my gosh. I can't believe we've been doing this for 3 years.
I know.
That's crazy. We are going to be talking tonight about the 2024 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony. We're going to be talking about presenters and performers, mostly performers, and some of our highlights and some of our lowlights. But before we do that, we have somebody that we really need to talk about who passed away very recently. So Rob, kick that off.
So we lost Quincy Jones this week, and Quincy Jones is kind of like the last man standing in many ways to this era of music, for the last decades. This is amazing, but he spent 7 decades in music.
Yep.
Which is incredible. He started off working with Count Basie and Duke Ellington, Miles Davis. Later, he was doing some stuff with Sinatra. He did film scores. I think he did the soundtrack for the first Italian Job film, and I think Pawnbroker as well. And then he also did the music for Ironside and the original Bill Cosby Show. And then he started doing some other stuff. I did not know this until I was watching a thing on him. He worked on Leslie Gore's "It's My Party" record, which I did not know. And he did a bunch of stuff with literally everybody. Michael Jackson is the big thing. Off the Wall, Thriller. He also helped Bad. Yeah. And he's been nominated, I think, for more Grammys than anybody else. He's been nominated for 70 Grammys, but won like 28 or 29.
Yeah, it's insane.
And it's insane. And then he also was responsible for the USA for Africa single, "We Are the World," right, which we talked about earlier. And also Quest Records, which was the home for New Order. And he's responsible for bringing New Order to America, literally in terms of producing records, having his own record label, playing on records, and just literally doing everything you can do in the business. It's amazing because there's not really many people that can have a linear mark from Duke Ellington to Michael Jackson to Lionel Richie to now, right? That's a huge legacy of like American recorded music that this guy's responsible for. And also, groundbreaking in terms that he was an African-American who really made a footprint in the music industry, which is also, I think, significant and important as well.
When you're talking about his work in soundtracks, he composed a whole bunch of scores for lots of different projects. And there's 3 that I want to mention. And the first one is Roots.
Oh, yeah.
Which he won a Primetime Emmy for. And then The Color Purple. This is not in chronological order because The Color Purple was in the mid 80s.
85, I think. Yeah.
And the one that I was really kind of focused on is The Wiz.
Oh, wow.
The musical version of Wizard of Oz, which had Nipsey Russell and Michael Jackson and Diana Ross, and just a crazy cast and really great songs.
That was just unbelievable.
Yes.
He's on down.
There's really almost just really no one that can match what he's done. I don't know. Maybe there is 1 or 2, but really he's just kind of a standalone figure, really.
No, totally. Totally, I
and
agree.
they're, outside of being a mentor
Mhm.
to like a bunch of Motown, I mean, everyone from like Stevie Wonder to Smokey Robinson, he's kind of had his
Yeah.
hands in some of the Motown stuff too. And she's just every type of jazz to soul to funk to
Yeah, every
disco, kind
genre,
of
and like you
through
said, 7
all
decades.
of
I
this.
mean,
He's around.
who
He's
can
been,
say that? So it's a huge loss.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I mean, we
Right.
do talk about people going a lot. We're like, oh, this guy was the drummer or the guitarist for this band for like
Mhm.
8 or 9 years. But Quincy Jones was pretty much the man for 70 years. That's incredible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being one of the people that Ellington would just say, go ahead and arrange it. I trust you is a huge thing. And same thing with Basie. They both were just like, make an
Mhm.
arrangement. We'll trust you. It's like, wow, and some of those Basie records he worked on are fantastic. And working with Sinatra, I'm sure was
Mhm.
challenging and interesting too, as well. So he's got quite a legacy. I mean, I just think that when we lose some of these legacy people, it's
Yeah.
a pretty big deal. But that was a couple days before the election, so it might have been overshadowed. But just everything that he did left some kind of a mark. I don't think you can look at Quincy Jones and say this guy had a failure
Yeah.
or this guy had a flop. I can't think of one. You know, so it's pretty amazing.
Well, even if he did, I mean, when you've got Off
Yeah.
the Wall and Bad and Thriller, who
Yeah,
Yeah.
cares if you had one or two failures, you know?
yeah,
When you've achieved the stuff that he has achieved. I
yeah.
mean, even Stevie Wonder had one bad record, so everybody has something, but man, just an incredible
And
career.
he had the idea of putting Vincent Price on Thriller
Yeah.
Mm,
too, which is genius. Yeah,
right. So rest in peace, Quincy Jones. And I will say that Quincy Jones was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2013. And that leads us into our main topic. We're going to be talking about this year's induction ceremony, the big concert in Cleveland. And I guess we'll just start at the top and go down the list of performers, and we can just talk about our highlights as we get to them and what we thought about each performance and things like that. And the show was kicked off with a tribute, and then Cher joining on stage, a tribute to Cher and her induction. What did we think of the Cher performance?
I think it's good for her to sort of come back and announce her presence. She's kind of been away for a while, but she also, like Quincy Jones, has been making music, I think, since probably the 60s, not as long as Quincy Jones, but she's one of these legacy artists that I don't think people necessarily think of as legacy artists. I think that she's probably one of the few people left in music that can
Yeah,
just kind
like
of
they were
do
saying, she
whatever the hell she
hit in
wants,
every
right?
decade, right? I
Yeah.
think it was something like that, or I mean, since then,
Yeah.
and that's so impressive. And she's also had such an impact on artists, on female artists specifically. But I mean, and she's also been such an advocate, of course, for
Mhm.
drag and stuff like that. Just she's very influential in that way, and I think that's really important too. She's very outspoken, very outspoken.
Mhm.
Yes, she is that.
Yeah, and I remember too, she said she
Yeah, that
didn't
was
wanna get
funny. That was
inducted, which
funny.
I thought was kind of interesting. It was like, "Oh, good, that she came." Yeah,
Oh yeah,
um,
she gave him the F word basically.
yeah. So I was very glad to see her
Which,
show up.
going way back to the first time that she was nominated for an Oscar, she was like, "Oh, I don't give a shit about that kind of stuff." And she was like, "I'm just going to protest it. And if I even show up, I'm just going to wear a beat up leather jacket and like holy
Yeah.
jeans and stuff like that." Like she didn't care. She did show up and she looked really, really elegant. She had this beautiful gown on, but also had the beat up leather jacket on top of that. So she kind of like went both ways. But yeah, it's interesting that she showed up and performed and accepted, because for the longest time she was like,
Right, and
yeah,
also
screw
PS
you,
sounds
Rock Hall.
great. Her voice sounded great. When your voice changes as you get older,
Mm-hmm.
but I think she's still got a really great sounding voice. So I was impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, she also the big thing that I've heard about Cher from a lot of people that are like diehard Cher fans is that she
Mhm.
knows when to listen to her producer. And if you listen to the stuff, from the 90s and the stuff from the noughts and everything on, like you said, it's
Oh, yeah.
different voices, but it's also different stylistically.
Yeah.
And she knows how to sort of like capture a moment. Because the most
Believe,
recent
yeah.
thing that everyone thinks of is Believe, right? Does not sound dated. Even the Turn Back Time doesn't sound really dated. Right.
Right.
Is that
Yeah,
the
that
one
was
she
Turn
sang,
Back
whatever the
Time.
one that she sang on the battleship with the video.
With the
That was
outfit.
Turn Back Time.
Well,
Yeah.
she has outfits for everything, but that outfit.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
yeah.
No.
But like her songs don't sound dated. It's really cool. You know, even I Got You Babe doesn't really sound super old, you know. It's relative terms, you know, you've
Yeah. When she made her big comeback in the 80s with Turn Back Time and Just Like Jesse James and things like that, I was kind of into that. I've not really been a big Cher fan ever.
yeah.
And I kind of liked those songs, and I still do kind of like those songs. I hated
Yeah, I think I
Believe.
did too.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, I hated it.
You know,
Holy shit, I hated that song.
Yeah, it was
no, yeah.
everywhere though. You couldn't go
Oh,
everywhere. And the
before it became
I
everywhere, I
hated it
hated
before.
it.
Was
and the thing about Believe, I remember when they put it on the record store when it came out, and we're just all like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be hit everywhere." But like,
Right.
she's the first big artist to embrace the vocoder as
Mhm.
for singing. So thanks.
Yeah, which in her induction, when she did her speech, she
Yeah.
kind of sounded like she was taking credit for that. I was the one who it
Yeah.
had nothing to do with her. Her producer did that, and
Yeah.
she didn't want to do it at first. And then she was like, "Oh, that is kind of cool." And then it
Yes.
became like this big, huge gimmick that really got a huge amount of attention to the single. But she didn't.
That
That's
was the
not
producer.
her.
Yeah, whatever.
That's her producer.
Can I just say something generally about the inductees? And
Right.
this is going to sound, I don't mean this in a horrid way or anything, but like for example, Cher, like I'm not a huge fan. I never was, but I can really appreciate her body of work and what she has done, I feel almost like this is
Yeah. Mhm.
one of these rock halls where I was not enthralled by almost any of these artists, but I definitely except I have to say A Tribe Called Quest because I love them. But I
Mhm.
really have come to appreciate them, especially as I get older, what they have done. And so to me, like a lot of these people were so uncool in high school. I was like, foreigner, you got to be kidding me. You know what I mean? But now it's like I mean, when I listen to Lou Graham's voice, it's like unbelievable, So I don't know. Just a general comment on
Yeah.
this whole show.
I kind of feel the same way. I was a little bit underwhelmed by this year's class, and I wasn't as enthusiastic this year as I usually am. Usually I get super into
Yeah.
the Rock Hall induction, and this year
Yeah,
I didn't.
me
I
too.
enjoyed the show a lot. And once I saw the show, I was like,
That's
okay,
what I mean.
I'm kind of buying into some of these inductees, but
Right.
going into it, I was like, I don't know.
I'm still not
Yeah.
really in love with some of these, and
Yeah.
and some of them, but I am excited that when they do these shows, you get the really interesting sort of collaborations and interesting people coming back and forth doing their interpretations of it. That is
Right,
far more
right.
interesting than some of the inductees.
Well, let's move to Kool and the Gang.
Oh my God. One of my absolute
Yeah.
highlights of the whole show. I thought that performance
It
was
really was.
fantastic. Oh my God. And they didn't like do
Yeah.
2 or 3 songs. They just did a medley of stuff from all across their career. And it was basically like everything was kind of at the same tempo. So it was one big song that just kept changing verses and choruses throughout. And oh my God,
Yes.
I thought they were on fire. And I mean, it's basically just a couple of
Right,
guys and the house band,
Yeah.
it wasn't a whole, and
Yeah.
like current touring members and stuff, but I still thought that performance was phenomenal.
I also like too, like I love the little
Yes.
recap videos they do.
Mm-hmm. I do too.
And Kool and the Gang is one of these bands I kind of always remember being around, but I never really thought about them in the context of like,
Yeah, I know.
wow, they had a lot of hit records.
Oh yeah.
I
And it's
know.
like, man, they had a lot of hit records.
I really like Chuck D. Great Induction, I thought, and I really liked the speech that honored the members that had passed away. So I thought that was really touching, and it was that was a very good segment. I loved it.
Yes. Some of their earlier stuff is like just
Mhm.
hardcore funk. They kind of like changed their sound a little bit when they added James Taylor, their lead singer, and that really shifted the game for them, and it made them a big commercial, even though they had big hits before that, like Jungle Boogie and things like that. But some of their earlier stuff is just funk. And I love their later stuff. I love Good Times and I love Celebration and, all that kind of stuff. But then they have songs earlier than that called Funky Stuff. And I mean, they were just
tight,
a
Yep.
tight band. But that was definitely one of the highlights of and you know what was fun? When the camera is cut to the audience to show like audience reactions to whatever's going on. And they cut to this shot of darling Miss Dionne Warwick, who was just getting down to the Kool and the Gang stuff.
I
And
loved
thought that
watching
was
her
so
reactions
precious.
during the whole thing. It was great. They're cutting to her a lot. It was cute. Well, she's the next inductee.
She's the next one. That's right.
Jennifer Hudson. I could just listen to her sing The Phone Book. So I thought she did a great, duet with her. That was when Dionne did walk on the stage with her and they sort of did a little duet together. And then Dionne did Walk On By. And P.S. at 83 years old, again, she still has a voice. I mean, of course, it's not like when she was 30, but she has a voice still. And it was like really cool to see her.
Yeah, I didn't expect her to sing either,
I know, I didn't either.
I don't know that I did or not, but I was very surprised that she did and very glad that she did. And she just looked like she was having a wonderful time. And I feel like at 83, what a very cool thing to have happen in your life. That's just so nice. Now, I'm going to be honest. I don't really see her as Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it's not because she's a different style of music. It's not necessarily it's certainly not the African-American thing. It's nothing, because there's rap acts that I feel like, yes, should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like Run DMC and LL Cool J. I thought they are perfect inductions. And,
Tribe.
Well, we're going to talk about Tribe in a little bit, but I don't know. I think it's the Burt Bacharach angle. I just don't see it as fitting in with the Rock Hall stuff.
I know, but
they have I know it's going to get me in trouble.
No, they have weird picks a lot. Like Dolly was a weird pick. I mean, there's some just weird, random stuff. So
right.
I don't know where you put her in terms of style, but she's done enough interesting things that I think that's what they looked at it.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I love a lot of her songs.
Yeah,
and I just don't really see it in the same.
Yeah, I mean, she's a lot like Cher, that you think of her as a singles artist more than like an album artist, and I don't know, I'm not up on her enough to know how much stuff she wrote for other people, whether that has something to do with it or not.
She didn't write anything. She does. She's not a songwriter.
I just don't know. I mean, but I think that she's somebody who's universally loved by everyone in the industry, and I think that's part of it.
Sure. I mean, that makes sense.
But like San Jose and Walk On By are pretty much gold standards for easy listening radio anywhere you go in the country.
Sure, absolutely. And a lot of the songs, and it's down to Bacharach more than anything else, a lot of the songs are really interesting because they all have like weird time signatures and stuff and weird rhythms, and they're tricky to sing, and they're very, very unique songs, especially things like San Jose. And I just think it's I think her stuff is cool. I just don't know. I just don't see it as
right.
When I think of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Dionne Warwick is not a name that comes to mind. I certainly wouldn't take the thing away from her, but
Excuse me, Miss Dionne, we're going to take your award away.
Right. Alan doesn't think you should have it, so he's going to take it.
But you would think of the MC5 as a rock and roll.
Oh my gosh.
And they were the next ones.
Absolutely. Holy cow.
I love Tom Morello too, his induction of them. That was they had that was such a great package they put together for them, because I mean I guess none of them are. How sad is that? Is there like nobody left from that band?
Well, one of the things that I kept thinking about, and I think about this every year, but I don't know, something about this year really brought it to mind, is I wish that they would induct people when they're still able to enjoy it and able to perform and able to show. Like Sheryl Crow got in. Sheryl Crow is at that age where she's still very much in her career, very much active, very able to perform. And then you get other people who either their health is so bad or they're old enough that they can't do it.
Yeah.
Or they're dead.
Or they're dead. And P.S. I'm right. They are all dead.
Yeah.
Wait,
Oh,
Kramer
shit.
died. Leaving Thompson as the only original surviving member of the band. I'm sorry. Okay, one guy is alive. Ugh,
But still, I mean,
I know.
that's such a shame
Yeah.
that I mean, I know that some of them have been dead for quite a while now, but still,
Yeah.
it just kills me.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Ozzy later on, but
But yeah,
that was a sad
that
situation.
that
Anyway,
was, yeah. So
but yeah,
anyway,
MC5,
very
man.
deserving.
And yeah, exactly. I put together a playlist of all the artists from this year's show that I've been listening to a lot lately. So there's some bands that I've never listened to very much, and MC5 is one of them. And I've really, really enjoyed getting a lot more into them.
Yeah. And I'll like the fact that they were like a real kind of symbol for the protest and the war, the anti-war, and just they were doing this.
Yeah.
This was just like their way of doing it, and it was like just coincided with the time so perfectly. I think that
Yep.
the culture and whatever, everything just came together in that
Yeah.
moment.
You know what's interesting about Morello inducting them is that there was a lot of controversy about when his band, Rage Against the Machine, was inducted.
Yeah.
And I mean, controversy amongst the band because some of the band members didn't want to have anything to do with it. And Morello was like the only one of the band that showed up, and he accepted. And it was kind of like grudgingly accepted, but he was like, this is an honor and blah, blah, blah. And now he's there again and inducting MC5. And so it's interesting that and I think he also performed at one of the previous ones, like he was in a band or something. But it's just interesting that he and his band have been very anti Hall of Fame.
Zach
but
didn't want
yet
anything
here he
to do
is.
with it. Yeah, right. right. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I know.
But I guess if anybody was going to induct the MC5, somebody else who is so anti-establishment should be the one to do it.
Him or Iggy.
In that sense. Yeah. What's that?
Him or Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Who else we got, Steph?
Foreigner.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. This is a biggie.
Okay.
Because
this is a biggie.
Their fans have been vocal for years about why and there's certain bands that every year when this stuff happens, when everything gets announced, there's certain bands that every single year their fans are like, why? And that is Styx, Boston, REO Speedwagon, and Journey. So one of those four has now finally gotten in. So thank goodness for that.
Yeah. Yep. And I thought Sammy Hagar did a really good induction speech.
He was great.
He really was.
I love him.
He was. And I I thought they had a fantastic array of performers doing their songs, like Demi. Is it Demi or Demi Lovato?
Demi Lovato.
Well,
yeah, she was good.
I thought she was really good. But when Kelly Clarkson and Lou Graham started on in I Want to Know What Love Is, I was like, holy, Kelly Clarkson is another person who I think she could sing the phone book and I would just be dancing to it. She was amazing. And the choir, and Lou Graham still has a great voice, I think.
Yeah.
Ish.
Not bad. I mean, at his age, and it's hard for rock and roll singers because they really strain their voices early on in life, and it kind of hurts them later on. And there's lots of people. Ann Wilson is suffering. Paul Stanley did for years, and it's just hard to sing that kind of stuff. Even in your 20s and 30s, and it not have an effect later on your voice. And that's why people like Dionne Warwick still sound pretty good because they didn't blow their voices out when they were younger.
Right.
They didn't do a lot of the screams and a lot of the
right. They're just thinking about all the songs that they did and had hits with. That's another band that I have come to appreciate more over the years. Like I always thought they were so uncool, but every single song in that package I knew like the back of my hand.
Oh, sure.
So it's just like they're embedded in your brain with all their songs, with all their hits.
Sure. I thought their first three albums were really good. I wasn't as hip on 4, which that's their big one.
Well, I also didn't know they kicked did they kick 2 people out to make 4? I mean, I didn't know. Like, that was that must have been brutal to be the 2 that were cut.
Right. And then to later on say the band was at its best after when we were a 4-piece instead of a 6-piece.
So
Ooh, that's not nice to say.
I know. Like, wow. Put that right in the package.
Ooh, baby. But that's one of those bands. And I think all 4 of those ones, well, no, not Boston. I think all 4 of those ones that I mentioned, you can't be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just because you're a band,
Yeah.
They have criteria. It's the 25 years, or longer of a career, the number of hits that you have. So they certainly qualify on those 2 things, but also they consider your legacy.
Yes.
And if you were a trailblazer, if you were an influence on lots of other artists, the impact that you had on the industry. And I just don't see Foreigner that way. I
Yeah.
just don't. And I think they're a great band. And the video package that they put together really did show what a great live band they are. But I just don't know that they are influential. I don't know that they are, more than just a big selling successful band.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because I mean, we don't have to go into the next inductee yet, but like Peter Frampton is that legacy guy, is the guy who was influencing everyone. So right, I agree with you. I don't think I don't know. Maybe there were kids in their basements playing Foreigner that are huge now. I really don't know, but I know that there's Peter Frampton fans that
Sure.
Yeah, he influenced a ton of people. So
yeah,
I agree.
Well, speaking of those 4 bands that I mentioned, I think you both know that I am an enormous Styx fan.
Yep.
I love Styx. I wouldn't nominate them for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I just don't think they're a phenomenal band, but are they that influential? Are they that important? Are they a game changer?
Right.
Did they affect the course of rock and roll progression? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm Foreigner's kind of in the same camp for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, since we mentioned Mr. Frampton, is he up next?
Yes, he is actually inducted by Roger Daltrey.
Holy shit.
Oh,
This was the pinnacle of the show for me.
me too.
I've been a Frampton fan since 76, and off and on. I'm not been like following his career or anything, but I love, I think it was Chad Smith in the video package. No, it was somebody else who said, he should be in just for 3 words. Frampton comes alive. And that really is it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not only the biggest selling record, it was just what a huge, huge album that was. And it made a huge impact on the culture and on the music industry. And God, I love that fucking record.
Recording
so
techniques
much.
And, obviously the recorder or whatever you call that.
That was one of the best sounding live albums of its time.
Yeah.
And still sounds better than a lot of later. Yeah.
That was my introduction to Frampton, because my sisters played the hell out of it, when I was like really, really tiny. And it's still probably the only Frampton that I've ever really heard. But I was really impressed with his playing at this. And
my God.
Him and Keith Urban. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was just like, wow, and I always saw him as being seminal and important. And like, I know he was an influence on like the White Stripes and the Strokes and stuff like that. But I'm really glad, as I'm one of these people as well, that there's another generation that's going to discover him, especially a generation of guitarists. And I'm hoping that this really takes it off for him, because I was really impressed with him. Somebody kind of walking in off the street to Peter Frampton.
That's how I am. I didn't listen to him when I was growing up. I didn't really. I mean, of course, I heard it on the radio because it was everywhere. But but Bob, for example, is hugely influenced by him. Loved him, knows everything. So what I also. Let me just say one more thing about Keith Urban, because I can never say enough about Keith Urban when he is with someone doing someone else's stuff, or, covering, whatever, playing with someone. Why is this guy not just a full-on rock star, rock and roll star. I feel like he should stop the country slop, like,
Mhm.
do the rock. You are unbelievable, dude. But I just feel like he needs to rock it out, And that
Yeah,
duet was crazy. That guitar duet with Frampton.
I love Keith Urban, and it has nothing at all to do with his career as a country pop artist because I don't really care much about any of the songs of his that I've heard. But as a guitar
Oh my
player,
God.
he just
Ridiculous.
eats my brain. He is so good. And every time I see him really playing guitar,
I know.
I just get completely mesmerized by him.
Yeah.
And pairing him up with Frampton was inspired, and I loved every second of it.
Yes.
God, he's amazing.
He's amazing. So that was
So
fantastic.
amazing.
But I just also found Peter Frampton's acceptance speech to be incredibly moving, especially
Yes.
when he was talking about, his muscle disease. And like
Yes.
he said something like, just don't forget, like behind every handshake and hello, there's a story. Basically, they're like people have their
Yeah.
own struggles, and everybody has something. So basically, saying,
Yeah.
like, don't forget that and be kind. And he was just so gracious and so
Yeah. That's Frampton for you.
just a really
That's who he
big
is. He's
presence.
just one of the nice ones,
Yeah.
But I was also really impressed that instead of coming out and playing, three, kind of sliced up shortened songs or playing a medley of stuff, he picked a song that was never a hit. It was never released as a single. It was the opening track on the live album, which is one of my favorite Frampton tunes of all. But and then the one that was a hit, but was a long, weird guitar jammy kind of song.
Yeah.
So he picked two unexpected things for his Rock Hall performance, and I was incredibly impressed by that. I was so excited when he started with Something's Happening, because that's just like the quintessential opening song for me for Frampton, and then the quintessential closing song for Frampton. And his playing was wonderful the whole time, and his voice sounded fantastic.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't sure because he's had a lot of health issues lately, and he's done mostly acoustic stuff lately, and he's done like instrumental albums where he's not singing. And, I just wasn't sure what to expect when he comes out and does his big rock hits with a full band. And he was just great.
Yeah.
Now we come back to that issue where he's inducted at a time in his life when he can't stand to perform while he's performing.
Wow.
And it's heartbreaking, but at least he could perform.
Yeah.
And but the thing is like at least the sound that he's known for and the skill that he's known for, he can still do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the thing that I thought was really impressive is not just him by himself, but when he played with Sheryl Crow, just like how much he added to that song that like sort of everybody has heard. It's sort of a earworm for everybody. And it's a whole different song with him on it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't ruin it. And I just thought that was really cool. I'm like, okay, that is a testament of a great artist, is can they make a good song sound different or better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a topic all its own, because there's a lot of occasions where somebody will come in and do a guest performance, or they'll come in and do an induction of another artist, and then the following year they get inducted.
Right.
So you kind of have to wonder, who is it that we saw on the stage this year that might end up being their own thing in the induction next year? That's interesting. Maybe Sammy Hagar. Who knows?
Maybe. Well, speaking of people that could not be there, the next inductee, which is Jimmy Buffett, not there to enjoy his induction, unfortunately, but had a really wonderful induction, I thought, by James Taylor and also by Dave Matthews. Now, I'll get to Dave Matthews specifically later because he's the last inductee, but I'll just state right now, I'm not a fan of Dave Matthews' voice, but I was completely sort of changed by this show, especially their whole performance at the end. But when he did this Jimmy Buffett song, just acoustic, him, I thought he was incredible. He had like such an excellent dynamic performance of the song. And I was really, really impressed. I thought it was great. I thought it was perfect. It was really touching.
I wasn't very familiar with the song Come Monday, but I thought it was, I'm not a big Buffett fan at all.
Yeah.
I grew up listening to him on Top 40 radio and the Cheeseburgers in Paradises
Yeah.
and the son of a whatever and the Margaritavilles. And I just never really got into his stuff, but I'd never really heard Come Monday before. And that was a really wonderful song.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So now it's like I have a favorite. I have a favorite Jimmy Buffett song, which I've never had before.
Right. And it's like also, I think it's just everybody also loved him as a person. And that always comes
Sure.
through anytime that when he passed away, wow, the amount of praise and kudos and that he got just for him as a person, was really, I thought, really special.
Yeah, agreed.
Are we going to go into a Tribe Called Quest now? Woo, woo, woo.
Tribe Called Quest.
Yes. I thought this was great. This was my favorite. This was my second favorite, I have to say, because maybe, like you said, maybe the Frampton was probably the best, but the Tribe Called Quest for me was really great. When they had on stage at once Latifah, Common, Busta Rhymes, De La Soul, Roots, playing all that stuff.
Yeah.
It was like that was just a performance that built and built and built and built, and that like exploded at the end. I was like out of my mind at the end of that performance.
It was really good.
It was so good.
And I'll tell you, I don't know a whole lot of Quest, but thanks to the induction this year and the playlist that I put together, I have really, really enjoyed getting to know Quest a lot better.
Yeah.
And I'm really loving their stuff now.
Yeah.
They were in that branch of people that crossed over onto college radio that were hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Steph remembers this. Them and De La and the Diggable Planets. There's a certain core group of hip hop and rap artists in the 90s that sort of like had no resistance going to college radio at all.
Yep. And that was totally like Della and them. Yep.
And then even after that, commercial alternative radio. They really got embraced by a lot of other people that don't normally listen to. I know people in the 90s that hated rap and thought it was horrible. And they heard De La and they heard Tribe and they're like, man, this is great.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So they sort of change the meter on hip hop at a time when it needed it, because everyone hearing hip hop and rap was like lumping it into like all these dark places. And you hear De La and you hear Tribe and Roots and all these guys, and it's going into a new direction. At this point.
Because they also incorporate so many different styles in their and the samples and their whatever. They just used everything so perfectly together.
And they tell stories in their songs.
Yeah.
That are fantastic. Like I left my wallet in El Segundo. The story they tell about that is just fantastic.
Yeah.
And then they, Can I Kick It is just amazing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then Lou Reed calls them. Q-Tip's at home just being Q-Tip, and Lou Reed calls them, and they're all like, because they didn't clear the sample.
Right.
So Lou Reed calls and goes, I heard you used my sample. And they're like, yeah. It's like, man, that was great. That was fantastic. And so it is always nice when you can sort of put something like that and then the artist approves. I mean, obviously he probably got paid too, but just the fact that they're embraced by the people that they're sort of doing that with is pretty fantastic. And, we talked about earlier, some of these soul bands getting kind of their due.
Mm-hmm.
Tribe and De La with some of their samples got a lot of these people back sort of in when people are tracking down their a lot of funk bands sort of got a new life because their records are being sampled by this whole generation of people doing hip hop. And and Tribe was at the center of that. And they're rhythmically tight, their voices are great. That documentary that Michael Rappaport did on them a couple of years ago is like a really great sort of exploration of who they are and where they're from. And just, Q-Tip's on a Chemical Brothers record. I mean, their voices, all of them sort of work differently, but collectively at the same time, which if that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes they say, oh, it's pop rap or whatever, but it's really, really good sort of laid back vibe. They're a band that you can always listen to all the time.
Mm-hmm.
One of the great testaments to them is if you were to say somebody, hey, I want to listen to rap music, where can I start? They're one of the bands you start people with just because it's a good.
They can appeal to so many different tastes.
They just made like phenomenal records.
Yeah.
And all their records were quasi concept records and they all were great. I I mean, they
Yeah.
didn't have a bad record. So
Yeah, that was a super well-deserved induction. So
I was really surprised they got nominated and in. I was really, I mean, I'm relieved, but I was like, wow.
yeah,
They've been nominated how many times?
don't know.
Oh, I don't
I
know.
don't remember. No, I think it's definitely deserved also. And again, like we were saying, the performance was fire. It
So
was
good.
so good. Holy shit.
I
Was that
know.
just a whole, like 10 minutes of just pure
Yeah.
energy.
And everybody in the crowd, like
God.
you'd see the audience just like
Yeah.
eating it up. So good. I wish
Yeah.
I was there for that. Oh man, I wish I was there for that.
You know, speaking of that, I meant to say, if I had been there with Frampton performing, I would have just bawled my eyes out.
Yeah.
I would have just been a blubbering mess, just being there and hearing him perform and sounding as great as he did. And then that speech that he made, I would have not been able to control myself.
Yeah, seriously.
I would just be a puddle on the floor.
Yep. All right. Well, speaking of
puddles,
speaking of trying, you know, like lives that people that have gone through hardships and come out the end, you know,
Yeah.
Mary J. Blige.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought this was another great everything. The package, the performance, just her speech. I think she gave one of the best speeches of the night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just so full of like gratitude and just the fact that she was there alive, you know, made it that far, made it, you know, through perseverance and just like sheer willpower and just amazing talent, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love watching her sing. And, you know, it's kind of like Patti LaBelle. Patti LaBelle, to me, is the greatest singer on the planet. And anytime I watch her sing, I'm just mesmerized by her. And Mary isn't quite that level for me because nothing comes, you know, close to Miss Patti LaBelle. But still, I think that she is an engaging artist. And I think that her songs are great. All Night Long, No More Drama, Real Love. I just love that stuff. And I just thought she brought it at that performance. Like she performed really well. The speech was just great.
Yes.
And I thought it was a really good moment for her.
Yeah, I agree. It was a really good highlight
of
the night, I think. Yeah. And people, you could tell, I mean, she's such a big influence on so many singers, you know?
Sure.
And, you know, just thinking about her beginnings from Yonkers, like she was like 19 or something when they were like, who is that? Like, you know, they're going, I'll be there tomorrow. Cause I mean, yeah, to have that powerful of a voice at such a young age. And then I don't know.
People like that end up with extraordinary voices, you know, like legendary voices. I always wonder who was the first person to see it? You know, like, was she 5? And people were like, she's really got something, you know? I always wonder when it was that it really started to emerge and become noticeable and make people take notice of her.
They showed that clip when she was young, you know, she was like a kid, you know?
I know.
That must have been you know, someone must have thought, hey, because that was really great even then. They're like, Mary Blige, because you didn't even have the J in her name yet. You know, she was just a little kid. Well, we have 2 more left, people.
There's a couple of more that weren't performances.
Oh, yes, that's
you know,
true.
because we had Big Mama Thornton.
Yep.
Yes.
Which was wonderful and so deserved.
Yes.
And way past time for that to have happened. And John Mayall.
Yes.
Who, when the list of inductees first came out, you know, I posted it on my Facebook and all my friends chimed in and debated and stuff. And I had one person say, John Mayall, though, I don't know. I don't really see it. And I'm like, you know, even if it weren't for his own body of work, the fact that his band launched Clapton and Fleetwood Mac and the Rolling Stones and all these people came out of his little organization.
Yeah.
That alone, you
Yeah.
know, but he himself was a phenomenal musician and gave a platform for all these people. He didn't really care about being a star himself. He liked being able to support other people
Yeah.
and to have other talents shine. So I was really
Yeah,
glad
like
that he was
create
in.
that scene, really, you know, just
Yeah.
had a
Yeah.
huge hand in creating that scene. Yeah.
Right. Right. So yeah, back to Ozzy. I just wanted to throw those
No,
two in
for
because
sure. Big
I
Mama
was
Thornton.
really
I mean, that was another
right.
were there a few others that just had
There were, yeah.
packages? Yeah. Anyway, but back to performances or
Yeah.
main ones, I guess. Yeah, Ozzy. First of all, let me just
Ozzy.
ask what was going on with Jack Black because he looked like red. Was it? It was like he was like every time he talked, his face was like bright red. Did you notice that, or was it my TV?
Does he have rosacea? Maybe, I don't know.
No, it was like he was like so like amped up about Ozzy. I think he was just.
Oh, I'm not, if that's the case, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Switch to decaf.
Yeah,
Jack
really.
Black, good Lord, that guy.
Oh my god.
Jack Black turns everything up to 11.
He was
Like he lives his life at 11.
No, and you could just tell how much he respected and loved Ozzy, and it was really hard to
Absolutely.
see Ozzy in that chair and like kind of
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah,
you know,
I mean-
you could see his son crying when he was, you know, up there and talking, and because it's so emotional, you know, it's like he's been through so much and he's got so many health issues, and obviously he
Yeah.
could not sing his own stuff, but he was singing along to it.
You're singing along. That's
He
right.
was singing along. And that was pretty cool. I thought like Wolf Van Halen was great. I thought
Yeah.
Zach, oh my God.
Zack Snyder. Oh my God. He's phenomenal, man.
What a guitar
God,
player.
that guy.
And I'll just
And Billy Idol?
Yeah.
Shit, Billy Idol.
And Steve
Sounded
Stevens.
great.
Yeah.
Mhm. I think like the unsung hero of the night there was two. There was Chad Smith, because he was
Yeah,
like
baby.
on so many performances.
He is a monster drummer.
He's a monster.
He blows me away. I mean, I've watched him play so many times, and every time it's like a brand new experience because he blows me away every single time I see
Yes.
him.
And
Holy
then
shit, that guy.
Roots drum. Why am I blanking?
Oh,
now?
Questlove.
Quest, yeah. Yep.
Fuck
They're
yeah,
both
man.
of that because they
Questlove.
both got to play on a lot of different performances. I thought they were both just incredible the whole night. So
Questlove's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, the Ozzy tribute I thought was really good. It's so sad that he's as deep as he is into Parkinson's and just cannot do anything anymore, really. Not just this, but you know, touring is out for him now. And that's been kind of the case for a couple of years now, but it's so sad that,
Yeah.
you know, you can't nominate somebody until they can't actively participate. And that's so sad.
I know, it really is.
God damn it. Just put people in when they deserve to be in, when they need to be in, when they qualify. Oh my God, it drives me crazy.
Yeah. Agreed. No, I 100%. Yeah.
Oh God. But I thought the tribute to him was really well done.
Yeah.
And Wolf Van Halen, oh my God, what a fucking talent that kid is.
He can play not just guitar
Jeez.
too. He can play like he plays everything. But yeah,
Well, he
his
got that
guitar-
from his dad
Yeah.
because his dad could play everything. God, that's just, you know, prodigy genes going from one generation to another.
Exactly.
That's just incredible.
Yeah.
God, I love that kid.
Me too. Well, last one.
Here we are.
Dave Matthews Band, which I thought was like, I love Julia Roberts' comment. She's like, well, we're about halfway through the show now.
I know.
It was so long.
It had been 5 damn hours and we're only halfway through.
So at first, see, this is how much I didn't know about Dave Matthews Band. I'm like, why is she inducting them? And then I Googled and I found out she was in their video in 2006. And so, and she's obviously friends with them. But this was the band I feel like that surprised me the most because, as I said, I'm not a Dave. I've been actually like adamantly opposed to the Dave Matthews Band.
Wow.
I just didn't really like them. But having seen them play that night for 3 songs in a row, the band is unbelievably tight. Their drummer just like blew my mind, and their horns. I mean, So I have to say, I'll give it up a little bit for Dave Matthews because
Yeah.
he was charming and funny and gave such a nice speech.
Yes.
And I not crazy about his voice, but I can sort of accept it more now, maybe a little bit. And fuck, their cover of Burning Down the House was sick.
Hell yeah, dude. That was amazing.
It was a great closer for the show.
Yep. I'm a casual fan of Dave Matthews Band. I've liked them for a long time. I've not been like hardcore into them, but I've liked them for a long time. And I've got some albums, and I've got that live album that there's just two of them, him and what's his name?
Tim Reynolds.
Tim.
Alan.
That he and Tim Reynolds did together. And that was amazing. And I don't know, I've been a casual fan for a long time. I thought they were great. I really thought the performance was fantastic. The band just blows me away. They are so damn good. And Carter Beauford, the drummer, as you said, he is incredible. He's one of those people that makes me just never want to play drums again, because if I can't be as good as that, why should I bother? And he is the most soulful, but the most precise machine I've ever seen play. And Stuart Copeland is in that category for me as well. But Carter is just oh my God.
I was watching him. I was like, if he doesn't get like 20 offers for like, hey man, will you play with me on this or that from that performance, I'd be like shocked, if I was, I'd be like, dude, would you play on my record if I was there? I mean,
yeah, but man, I thought they were great. And like you said, man, Burning Down the House, that was killer.
He's like with the little riff in the beginning, he's like, I'm gonna mess this up, but he didn't, and they really sounded great. That must be something they must play that at their live shows, right?
Yeah, they do like a cover per show.
Yeah,
and that's one of the ones that they've done a lot of times, and they've done Sledgehammer a lot. There's things that have rotated in and out of their set, and that's one of them. So it's not something that they just went into for that night. They have played it before. Yeah.
But wow.
But man, it was so killer.
My problem with Dave Matthews, is I remember in 1997 when I worked at a record store that he actively went out of his way to put several independent record stores out of business by cracking down on selling bootlegs and was uncompromising in doing this. I have several people that lost jobs because of it. And then also just dumping his tour bus sewage into the Chicago River, right?
Ew.
Yeah. So he's kind of, after that happened and the negative publicity of it, he's really tried to sort of like retool his career. And he's done a very good job of sort of spinning that. I think he's probably got a ton of talent. But the other thing I have about Dave Matthews is I just don't see the legacy of it. It's like Foreigner. I just don't see it,
Interesting.
I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't either. I think I agree.
I just, I mean, if you're gonna put Dave Matthews in, put Guided by Voices in. I mean, there's a lot of the same bands that are in this sort of thing. It's like I think he's
Guided by Voices.
I think he's in the Hall of Very Good. Or very marginal.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's like
very
Fish
good
or something. I don't know. Yeah, it's like these,
I
just say the twirly bands, and
I mean, there's so many other people that aren't in the hall that could easily go in before him, and that's just kind of like I was kind of underwhelmed by the whole lineup this year anyway, and I'm just like, Dave Matthews is the one that just left a bad taste in my mouth.
But that's how the hall is. Like, that's why there's so much like hate for the hall and love for the hall. I mean, it's just like, but I have to say he kind of did win me over a bit. So
good.
I know that his live shows are supposedly better than his records.
Oh yeah. Like so I was thinking that. I said that to Bob, like I would not go kicking and screaming now to a concert. I would gladly go to see a concert, by Dave Matthews. And I think I would enjoy it. That's what I meant when like 3 songs in a row gave you an opportunity to kind of see what the energy is. And
I worked at a record store, and when he was cracking down on bootlegs, we had to like literally go through and take out like hundreds and hundreds. It was just like 3 days of my life of like, I need backbreaking work. I need back. I just remember the people that would come in and buy his records were so annoying. So I'm kind of scarred by it. sort of like, hey dude kind of crowd,
Mm-hmm.
but I think I will say this, I think he's matured as an artist.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably changed directions of sort of the music that he makes. I think it's a little more deeper now, maybe, or a little more fleshed out, I guess. But those first couple of records just didn't sound like cohesive albums. It was sort of like song, 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 song. But it's the 90s. A lot of records sounded like that too. I mean, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you're going to put Dave Matthews in, are we going to put Semisonic and Everclear in now? Or, I mean, what are we doing here?
Everclear, shit.
I mean...
Still, it was a great way to end the show with burning down the house. That
that was I will give you that. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird that we didn't have a big, like a big song that everybody came out and played.
Yeah.
It was just them that played it, and it was, I don't know. Yeah, I just missed the whole like big jam with everybody on stage together.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's okay, but it was still good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
All right. So good show this year.
Yeah.
I think so.
Overall. Yeah. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Me too.
And I learned a lot. I mean, that's one thing I like this year. Is I felt like I learned a lot about people,
I agree. I love, getting to learn about people that I might not have known much about before.
Yeah. Yes. And I love their packages are amazing.
Yeah.
I can watch artists I know nothing about and watch their packages and I'm like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so we're going to take a super quick break. We'll be right back in 30 seconds to wrap up our show, so don't go anywhere.
The Halloween season's over, but the holidays are coming. That's right, Monster Attack will be celebrating this year's holiday season with some very, very special shows with our co-hosts Madeline, Shane, Clay, and Mark. So join us this holiday season every Monday for new episodes of Monster Attack, the podcast dedicated to old monster movies.
Okay, we are back. I've got an item that I want to sneak in really quick because I normally would put this at the top of the show, but since we were talking about Quincy, I didn't want to get in the way of that. But I've got some listener feedback to share, and this is from our good buddy, Eric Sensava.
Eric!
Who wrote in about our soundtracks show a couple of episodes ago. And I would have shared this last time, but we had a guest on, and so we didn't really have the opportunity to put this in. But I just wanted to share that he wrote in and says, "Hey guys, long time since I've commented. A couple of soundtracks I love that are probably more unique choices. We'll call them honorable mentions. Into the Wild. I'm not really an Eddie Vedder or Pearl Jam fan per se, but after I saw the movie and the foreboding folksy tone that the Vedder soundtrack put into it, I just had to go out and buy the album. It remains a favorite. More recently, The Holdovers. The movie is set in the early 70s, and the nice blend of folksy, psychedelic, and bluesy music from that era they chose sets a foreboding, wintry New England chill tone with the late 60s, early 70s music, Cat Stevens, Allman Brothers, Shocking Blue, etc. These were intermingled with some Christmas classics since it's set around Christmas time. Even the Christmas versions they chose were not the obvious choices for the time. Silent Night by The Temptations, Jingle Bells by Herb Alpert, etc. And lastly, about Forrest Gump. I agree. A lot of the songs bring back memories of the movie. I can't hear the Freebird guitars without picturing that stressful scene with Jenny high on drugs, teetering on the edge of the building, wondering if she'll fall or not. Spoiler, she didn't. So thanks, Eric. It was great to hear from you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for writing in. If anybody else wants to share their thoughts about the show, and particularly this week's episode about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction this year, you can email us at modernmusicology1@gmail.com, or just comment on our socials. Wherever we have posted the episode, feel free to comment there. That's where we got Eric's from. All right. So we will be back in 2 weeks, and we are going to be talking to a legend in the music business. And this is somebody that, next time is going to be our last show of the year. So I think this is a good way to wrap up our year. We're going to be talking to Robin Hitchcock.
Yes.
Robin freaking Hitchcock. So, Rob, tell us a little bit about Mr. Hitchcock and what we've got in store for us.
So Robin Hitchcock's got a book out right now called 1967. Instead of doing a traditional memoir, he just picked 1 year of his life, which is 1967, which he sees as sort of the nexus of his interest in music. And he writes about all the records he listened to in 1967 when he was in school. You know, there's the Kinks, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, lots of stuff in there. And he talks about that. He made a record of covers of the songs in the book. And we may also have Emma Swift, who is his partner with him as well, who does perform with him and also does solo records on her own. But he lives in Nashville now. Everything from the Soft Boys all through those records with the Egyptians to the stuff he's doing on his own. You know, he's got a prolifically great career and body of music. And his book is moving and touching, and it tells great stories. It is everything you really want in a really great memoir, and it's not too long, which is also
that's
fantastic.
The important part.
Yeah. No, he just doesn't overdo it. For a surrealist, you know, it's not, doesn't play around. And if you know, everyone's heard stories about, oh, I went to boarding school when I was in England and stuff, and his are pretty pedestrian, but they're musically related, and it's really some great story. I'm really curious to hear him talk to Anthony, because I'm sure they'll have some shared memories of some of their English upbringings. And he's lovely. He's just a very nice, down to earth, great guy.
Well, I'm super looking forward to reading this book, because before I even knew that he had done this or was going to do this, I had this exact same idea of doing one about 1980, which was the year that my musical taste exploded into every facet you can imagine. And I've really been kind of struggling with the approach to take. Like, should I make it more about the music and nothing? Who cares about me? I mean, I'm sure people care about what Robin Hitchcock was doing in 1967, but nobody gives a shit what I was doing in 1980.
Oh, we do.
So do I make it mostly about the music, or, you know, how much of me do I put into it?
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to reading it to kind of get a better idea of the approach that I could take for mine.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be in 2 weeks from now. So everybody, until then, have a great week, and we will see you next time.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.